Celebrating America's family farmers, it's National Ag Week. Coming up on Grow, how some city folks are connecting with agriculture. And despite the downturn in the farm economy, look at growth in livestock in the state. And will we ever see property tax relief on the farm? We'll hear from the governor and lawmakers straight ahead on Grow. In a state where cattle outnumber people, agriculture's impact is felt everywhere, and National Agriculture Week is a chance to reflect.
We're right now the #1 state for cattle on feed, so we've got a lot to be excited about.
Opportunity abounds on the farm.
We have made tremendous strides in growing agriculture.
Nebraska's a powerhouse producer of corn and soybeans, but for farm and ranch families, it's hard to get more land, so the focus is livestock.
We can do that on the same acreage and create more economic activity in our community, create more economic activity in the farm or ranch, and be able to employ maybe a son or a daughter or even more people.
And diversifying may help as the state suffers an economic slump because of low commodity prices.
It really ripples through our entire state when you think about with commodity prices being down and how it impacts our state revenues, where we've got to be cutting our budget right now because agriculture is down.
While the rest of the nation suffered through the Great Recession a decade ago, Nebraska weathered the storm on the strength of agriculture.
Now when the rest of the nation is going fairly strong, the economy in the rest of the nation is fairly strong, in Nebraska, our economy is suffering some stress.
The governor says that's why farmers need tax relief and less government interference.
Reduce the regulatory red tape.
The state has become the largest exporter of beef, also #1 for popcorn and Great Northern beans. So even in bleak economic times, agriculture shines.
Nebraska agriculture is a big deal.
Congressman Adrian Smith recognized Nebraska farmers and ranchers on the floor of the U.S. House.
I rise today in recognition of National Agriculture Week and the farmers and ranchers who have made Nebraska's 3rd district the top producing agriculture district in the country. 1 in 4 Nebraska jobs is tied to agriculture. The hard work and innovative practices of our producers have made our state a leader in feeding the world.
He also says he will continue to promote policies that will help Nebraska producers get access to markets worldwide. He also wants to lessen government regulation on farmers. First in red meat production, first in irrigated acres. Some call that the Nebraska advantage, unmatched anywhere, and city folks get a closer look.
We couldn't be here if it wasn't for our family.
Passed through generations.
My wife, Katie, and I.
Family is what Nebraska agriculture is all about.
You know, we're still young at this. We're still got a lot of learning to do.
On this day, Andy Blesson does the teaching.
We want these calves hitting the ground, getting up, eating.
And why is that?
A retired retailer has questions.
Many people that don't know where the food comes from. So opportunities like this will help explain that to some of those people.
As the public grows further removed, farmers invite folks on their turf.
Even though it's local people touring local facilities, I still think it's a good experience.
Seeing how corn feeds cattle and how the manure is recycled.
We provide nutrients to a lot of local farmers via our byproduct, and we use a lot of the byproduct from our local ethanol plant.
And this one feedlot near Juniata produces enough beef to feed more than 1 million Americans a year and puts millions in the local economy.
It's a big impact. Property taxes, utilities that we pay for, diesel fuel, gasoline.
Nebraska does it as well as anyone.
We're kind of in corn and cattle country.
Ag is our #1 industry in Nebraska.
A bus tour is a chance to see the full circle.
And learning about other things that go on around me every day that I don't know about.
The local farm bureau teamed up with corn growers.
To me, they look good out in the pasture. And
Andy Blesson raises more than cattle. He's raising a family and raising awareness.
Thanks for having us out.
One feedlot alone can have an impact of millions of dollars. The Gotch Feed Yard in Juniata employs 63 people with a payroll of around $2.6 million. They pay nearly $400,000 a year in utilities, and they figure 94 trucks a day roll through hauling cattle, feed, and nutrients. Nebraska and Texas have been locked in a battle to be #1 for cattle on feed. For red meat production and commercial cattle slaughter, Nebraska takes the top spots. Another bright spot, ethanol. A study by the University of Nebraska in 2015 found the state's ethanol production capacity had grown tenfold, with a $5 billion annual impact. And that growth continues, with 2017 expected to be a record year. Nebraska can produce 2.2 billion gallons of ethanol, and Nebraska ethanol producers used 31% of the state's corn crop in 2016. The Ethanol Board points out corn is not only turned into ethanol, but a number of valuable co-products like distillers grains, corn syrup, and corn oil. Nebraska is the second largest ethanol producer in the country. An Omaha man is sentenced for a federal crime of cattle fraud. 45-year-old Alan Ostrander will serve 5 years of probation. He pleaded guilty to wire fraud and failure to file tax returns. Ostrander managed the Big Drive cattle feed yard near Fullerton in 2009 and 2010. He must pay a restitution to a packing plant for selling its cattle, but not paying over proceeds of the funds. Also, prosecutors say he used the feedlot's money for himself, and he has to work with the IRS to pay taxes. Nebraska agriculture is diverse, much more than corn and cattle. As we celebrate National Egg Week, NTV's Tara Gibbons has more from a local chicken farmer doing the job all by himself.
A veteran having a dream to raise livestock, and it was chickens.
It's time-consuming, 24/7. A lot of fun nonetheless, though.
And he does it all by himself. Dan Rome is walking into the coop every morning.
I make sure their feed is topped off, their water is topped off, and that's pretty much the gist of what I do with the chickens in the morning.
Collecting eggs that his chickens laid, he sells them to various farmers markets across the Tri-Cities. And Dan says some times of the year are tougher than others.
Wintertime production definitely goes down. Right now I'm collecting on average between 270 and 300 eggs a day. Of a flock of between 450 and 500.
Dan always knew he wanted to get into agriculture and says raising chickens is the most manageable and cheapest way to do it.
People use a lot of, well, eggs. You know, cooking, baking, you know, breakfast. I mean, it's a very common thing. It's also one of the most nutrient-dense and affordable food.
Keeping the business alive, Dan says working alongside people has made it easier for him.
For me, networking has been the biggest key to my farm's success. It is what made this farm possible.
All the success, all it takes is time management and having a routine to start the day and end with it. Reporting in Grand Island, I'm Tara Gibbons for NTV News.
And another positive sign for rural Nebraska, population is on the increase. According to the Census Bureau's 2016 updates, more Nebraska counties are gaining population than a decade ago. A coordinator for the Center for Public Affairs Research at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, says the population in 30 counties grew between 2010 and 2016, compared with only 18 a decade ago. Now, the results of last week's poll question. Farmland values have declined in Nebraska, but what about cash rent in your area? What are you hearing? Well, 68% of you say about the same. 15% of you say numbers are lower. A handful say numbers are higher. And a few folks say results are mixed. With spring here, it means more people may be out driving ATVs, especially on the farm. CHI Good Samaritan says in 2015 they noticed an increase in ATV injuries. Over the last several years, they are urging patients to be careful while riding. A lot of crashes are rollovers, and nurses tell us that can be life-threatening.
Anybody that's had an ATV injury, you know, especially if they have broken bones or spinal cord injuries or head injuries, they have a potential for a long road to recovery and rehab.
ATV use is common on the farm, and nurses caution people to follow safety guidelines. Applications are now available for the Nebraska LEAD program. LEAD, Leadership, Education, Action Development Group 37 will be starting up. It's for men and women involved in production agriculture or agribusiness. Up to 30 motivated men and women with leadership potential from across the state will take part in the group, in addition to monthly 3-day seminars throughout Nebraska from mid-September through early April. LEAD fellows also participate in a 10-day national study travel seminar and a 2-week international study seminar. Now in its 36th year, the program is operated by the Nebraska Agricultural Leadership Council, a nonprofit organization in collaboration with the University of Nebraska's IANR, Nebraska colleges and universities, business and industry, and individuals throughout the state. And this weekend got off to a rocky start with some wild weather. Storms Thursday night into Friday caused a barn to blow over, partially blocking a road near Riverdale in Buffalo County north of Kearney. The National Weather Service reports winds 50, 60, even 70 miles an hour, along with hail accompanying those storms. Later, will we finally see property tax relief on the farm? We'll hear from lawmakers. Up next, a visit with the State Director of Agriculture.